Today's discussion is on a topic that is near and dear to a number of banks that I've worked with over the past many years, and the topic is surrounding how do we modernize the core systems as it pertains to banking, whether it is in the retail side or on the corporate side of banking. And so as we set to think through this problem, um, we thought what we would propose here is a really innovative approach to enabling that type of progressive core modernization in banking. Um, but this being a technical session, what I thought we would do here is to show the flow of information um, that creates the necessary business outcomes for our banks. And if we did that, then that would make for a more meaningful dialogue. And in order to show that flow of information, let me begin first with uh, with with some background that shows the relevance of why are we doing whatever it is we want to do. So I set the stage by saying something that you all know. Banking is an incredibly dynamic industry. I've been in this industry for over 3 decades now, and the pace of change in this industry has just continues to accelerate, and I love that. Gives me a lot of energy, a lot of reasons to think and to act. Now, let me begin talking about the shift that we've been seeing in this industry, and this this industry, as I said, is dynamic, just has continuously been moving, innovating. But I want to focus on let's say the period of the last 3 years, and look at what are some of the drivers, and in addition to being a driver, being also a catalyst for change within the industry. Right at the center, you will see customer expectations, and this, I believe, has been at the forefront of all of the drivers that we will see and discuss today. Customer expectation is truly all about creation and providing of a better way of servicing and meeting the needs of the customer. So today, customers like us, you and I, on the retail side, and businesses like us that we represent, have unmet needs and wants, or we have a view of banking that is very different from how traditionally banks saw banking. Banks saw banking traditionally from a product perspective. We see banking from our journey in whatever aspect of life we are in, whether we are a college student or whether we are a new parent or a new homeowner or a new something. It is our journey that matters to us, and therefore our expectations that we impose on the industry becomes a driving factor for banks to be able to react to. And those expectations have been rising, just given the advances in technology and the enablements that are there, such as mobile and so forth, that make us want to do things instantly. So let's hold that on one end and look at the other ends of what some of these catalysts for change are. Needless to say, there are incredible fintechs, and when I say incredible fintechs, I'm hoping to count my own company, Zafin, in that category. Some of these fintechs are enablers for banking, in that they enable banking to happen seamlessly and to meet those expectations of the customers in an agile manner. But some of the fintechs are also competitive to the banking industry, and that's what I'm really talking about here. These are digital-only banks, or banks that are processing payments, hitting at the most profitable end of banking. So this aspect is something that we just have to live with, and competition is coming at it from a product innovation standpoint and from also a vastly improved customer experience. Now, add to that the regulatory forces that continue to exist. There is increasing regulation that is happening within this industry, whether we like it or not, and most of it to drive transparency into what this industry has been about. And that necessarily means higher cost of service to a bank. And when competition is taking away the most profitable parts of the banking business, that puts a tremendous squeeze on profitability. And therefore, uh, when there's a squeeze on profitability, most of the banks tend to look at how do we cut our cost of servicing and tailoring much more uniquely to the needs of the customer those products and services that are necessary. And therein comes the need for advances and advancements in technology that enable those to happen. So bottom line is we have rising customer expectations, significant fixed cost increases, putting a pressure on profitability, and therefore the turn to technology to enable that and make all that happen. So irrespective of which way we look at it in terms of the journeys that the banks are undertaking to modernizing their core systems or transforming how they operate and so forth, the bottom line message is everyone needs to go digital. And that's where the focus is, and that's where the focus of today's topic will also be. So this transformation and this modernization is really all about how do you enable better products with faster time to market, meeting the needs of the customer and being able to adapt and grow with those needs. And in that context, so think about it purely from a product standpoint. And the reason I begin with the product standpoint versus the customer experience standpoint is that's where banking as an industry has come from. So as you transform by adopting some of the best practices that exist in the industry that others before you may have done, that allows you to de-risk the manner in which you are modernizing. So we have looked at this task of modernization, and there are many pathways that banks have chosen to modernize. But irrespective of which way they've chosen to modernize, we believe the best way to do this while minimizing the disruption that will happen no matter whichever way you choose is to progressively modernize. And that progressively modernization of your core systems means that it allows you to minimize your risk of that core being replaced or changed, while you can avoid the unnecessary costs that come from all of the testing and so forth that you would need to undertake. So we think and we believe that progressive modernization is really the pathway to making this happen. And therefore, let's start examining some of these real-time information flows that are going to happen when you progressively modernize. Let's take any core system, and let's say you are connecting it to an application such as what Zafin provides in terms of product pricing, etc. And let's look at what value you can create when that flow happens. Now, this is an important aspect to consider, because if you think about leveraging data from your existing system, then you can actually transform the way in which your products function, and also how your products are managed. And you can do that to enable new features. You can do that to monitor fees. You can do that to customize rates uniquely. You can do a number of these things, and the real value that your business gets is not just the business agility that results from it, but also execution flexibility that results from it. So as a consequence, what we did jointly with IBM is a very interesting proof of concept. And that proof of concept was to really take the Zafin application and integrate that into IBM Z Digital Integration Hub. Now, what does the Zafin application do? As I said, it manages products outside the core system or it manages variants of these products outside the core system with some of the latest innovation and technologies in terms of fees, rates, rewards, and offers, and so forth. That's what we do from a Zafin application standpoint. From an IBM Z Digital Integration Hub, what that does is to integrate backend into the core systems, no matter what the core system might be, and retrieve data in real time with some real-time processing capabilities. Now, those real-time processing capabilities, where it comes into play is to enable dynamic pricing and rates to happen. So I wanted to set this business context for you, because as we start getting into the technical aspects of what we are doing, you will see why and how it enables that business functionality to happen. So the proof point from a technical standpoint that we are aiming to do is, number one, front and foremost, is we want to externalize product and pricing from the core systems. And if we can demonstrate that you can do that, then you will see the value in terms of how the core gets modernized. So quickly, we are going to get into, in a couple of minutes, into use cases that actually show this. So we're going to demo for you some use cases, 3 particular use cases that will show you how you can bring flexibility to rates and rewards, in particular in this type of an environment with externalization. Now, the key things to remember for you are the following: that the data that you're going to see is actually coming directly from the systems of record and actually stays in the systems of record. Very interestingly, the application retrieves only what is needed and no more. So you will see that in the case of deposit rates and instant rewards, there will be real-time data, and in the case of the periodic recurring rewards, it is aimed towards batch processing. And real-time is important because you're now thinking of doing things with data as of now, versus when we do it with batch, it's really typically data as of yesterday. And all of this data is going to be ingested through APIs, through some very standard interfaces that you will see. The flow of information that you will see in the demo that's going to follow immediately after this is, think about it from the standpoints of requests that are coming inbound from a channel. And that channel can be an internet banking application, or your mobile, or whatever, or your traditional branch, or any of those channels. They create requests that come into a front-end application like Zafin. So the Zafin application will accept the request from channel, and for the data that it needs, will send the request for information into the Z Digital Integration Hub. Now, the Z Digital Integration Hub will accept that request from Zafin to retrieve the data from the system of records and go back into the backend core systems, retrieve the data, and send it back into Zafin. And then we process the response from the Digital Integration Hub and then respond back to the channel. So that's the real flow of information that happens. And on the screen, you see the bluish type of dark arrows, and those represent the API calls that happen between these various systems. So at this point, let me request Terry to turn over the presenter mode to Vinu so that we can run through the demo of the 3 use cases that I talked about. Over to you, Vinu.
Thank you, Bala. I'm sharing my screen. I hope you're able to see.
Yes, we can see it, Vinu.
Yeah, thank you. So in this demo, we will cover 3 use cases. Use case 1 on rates management, a scenario around deposit rates pricing. Use case 2 is on instant cashback reward. And use case 3 is around cross-product bundles and cash bonus offer. While this demo covers only the use cases related to rates management, rewards, and product bundle offers, Zafin applications capabilities also include areas such as fees and waivers, transactional rewards, merchandise rewards, and packages. Let us now discuss the use cases in detail and see how the system works to fulfill these use cases. Use case 1. This use case is on deposit rates pricing, and this demonstrates how unbundling rates from core systems give the bank and the product managers in specific more control and flexibility on rates management. The use case here is to offer standard rates and offsets on money market deposit product based on customizable set of attributes. The attributes here are deposit amount, customer region, customer segment, and relationship balance. Let us take a look at the standard rates offered on the money market product. Deposits up to $100,000 will receive an interest rate of 0.75%. Amounts from $100,000 till $500,000 will receive a rate of 0.85%. Any deposit balance above $500,000 will receive a standard rate of 0.90%. Let us now see the special rates and the conditions applicable for special rates. Eligible customers will receive 20 basis points in addition to the standard rate offered for the product. The rate incentive is available only for the customers based out of New York who belongs to affluent segment. In addition, the customer should also avail bill pay service and must have a relationship balance of at least $50,000. The condition also says only deposit amounts greater than $10,000 will be eligible for rate incentive. Let us see how the integration happens between various systems for this particular use case. Based on the requests received from channels, Zafin application will send requests to Z Digital Integration Hub for required information from core systems. Zafin application sends the customer ID to Z Digital Integration Hub, and Z Digital Integration Hub would send back information such as customer's region, segment, and bill pay flag. The application also calculates relationship balance real time using the data in the core systems, which is then used by Zafin application for processing. After processing the information, Zafin application sends back the applicable rates for the customer to the channel from where the original request is received. Let us now see how the standard rates, special rates, and eligibility criteria is configured in Zafin application. A regular money market product is defined in the application with the code MM01. Let us take a look at the standard rates defined for the product. We can see that the standard rates are defined as explained in the use case. Let us now check the special rates and the rate eligibility criteria defined. To fulfill the eligibility for availing special rates, rules are configured in the application. Customer segment must be affluent. They must belong to New York region, must be availing bill pay service, and the relationship balance must at least be $50,000. All these are defined in the application. And if the customer meets these requirements, they would be eligible for special rates. So let's take a look at the special rates. Special rates are defined as 20 basis points additional to the standard rates for each balance tier above $10,000. Let us now see this use case working by pulling the data real time and processing the data on the go. For demonstrating the origination of requests from channels, we are using Postman application. So in this demo, the requests will originate from Postman and the responses to those requests will also be displayed in Postman. In this request that originate from online banking channel, customer would like to know what would be the interest rate applicable if he opens a new money market account and deposits $100,000. The request is being initiated from the channel. For a better visualization of requests and responses through APIs, we have used Grafana in this demo. We can see that the original, based on the original request from channel, Zafin application has sent a request to IBM Digital Integration Hub with the customer ID to retrieve required information. As a response, Digital Integration Hub has retrieved the data from core systems real time, processed it, and sent it back to Zafin application for rates processing. Relationship balance here is computed real time by IBM Digital Integration Hub using the information in the accounts that belongs to the customer. Zafin application has processed the response from Digital Integration Hub for eligibility and special rates. When we look at the response, we can see that the system has responded with a standard rate, a special rate, and an incentive, and finally a final rate that includes the basis point rate incentive. As this customer is eligible for special rates, they would get a final rate that includes 20 basis points as the rate incentive. That brings us to the end of use case 1. Let us take a look at the second use case. This use case is on providing an instant cashback reward to the customer. The use case shows how the bank can promote digital banking and reward the customer who does banking more through digital channels. The end result is reducing the dependency on branch banking, plus increasing the customer loyalty. The use case is to provide instant rewards to customers on eligible transactions based on customer behavior and specific attributes. The reward is applicable only to digital savings accounts and is restricted to mobile funds transfer transactions. In addition, there are some requirements around customer behavior which would decide whether the customer is eligible for the instant cashback reward. The customer must not have exceeded 5 cash withdrawals in the current month. Cash withdrawals include withdrawals to branch as well as ATM. The second requirement is that the customer must have spent at least $2,000 on an average in the previous 3 months period on the debit card linked to the account. In addition, the customer must have opted for electronic statements. If these requirements are met, the customer would receive an instant cashback of 1% of the transaction value on eligible transactions. Account will not receive cashback on transactions performed after exceeding the specified number of cash withdrawals. So to use an example, if the customer does a mobile banking transaction on a day for which he receives a cashback and then does an ATM withdrawal that makes the count of cash withdrawals in the month cross 5, if he does a mobile funds transfer again later that day, he would not receive cash bonus for the second transaction. Let us now see how the integration happens between various systems for this use case. Based on the transaction information received from mobile channels, Zafin application will send requests to Digital Integration Hub for required information from core systems. Zafin application sends the account number to Digital Integration Hub, and Digital Integration Hub would send back information such as count of cash withdrawals month to date, average card spend, and e-statement flag. Cash withdrawals months to date is derived real time by Digital Integration Hub by identifying the transactions on the account. After processing the information, Zafin application sends back the cashback amount for the transaction to the channel from where the original request is received. Let us see how the instant cashback is configured in Zafin application. Instant cashback reward is applicable for digital savings accounts. The reward is configured as a planned reward within the fee plan. There are three conditions to be satisfied in order to be eligible for the cashback. Number of cash withdrawals in the month must not exceed 5. Previous 3 months average spend on the linked debit card must at least be $2,000. And the customer must have opted for e-statements. Cashback is applicable only for mobile funds transfers, so the transaction code is added to the filter to be considered here. And the cashback is defined as 1% of the transaction amount. Let us see how the cashback is being calculated real time. In this case as well, we are using Postman to mock the origination of transaction information from mobile channels. Transaction information received by Zafin application from mobile channels will have information such as account identifier, transaction reference, transaction code, execution date, transaction amount, and debit credit indicator. Once the transaction is successful, the request is being initiated for cashback calculation. Using the request received from channel, Zafin application has sent an API call to IBM Z Digital Integration Hub with the account number, for which details are sent back to Zafin application. This information is retrieved real-time from core systems by Z Digital Integration Hub. Two variables are calculated real-time by Z Digital Integration Hub: the number of cash withdrawals month to date and 3 months average spent on the debit card. We can see that the transaction is eligible for cashback and the details are sent back to the channel as a response. Cashback is calculated as 1% of the transaction amount. That brings us to the end of use case 2. Let us see the third use case now. This use case is on cross-product or multi-product bundle offer. The use case demonstrated here help banks in deepening the relationship with their customers by offering customized rewards that would supplement the cross-selling efforts. For availing this offer, customer must hold 2 products, a smart checking account and a premium credit card. In addition, the customer must also satisfy certain criteria over the month, and those would be: there must be a spend of at least $500 on the premium credit card, and the average deposit balance on the smart checking account should at least be $1,000. The reward is a monthly cash bonus of $50, which will be credited to the smart checking account on the month end if all required criteria are satisfied. Let us now see how the integration happens between Zafin application and Z Digital Integration Hub to support this use case. Unlike the previous use cases, there is no channel in picture for this use case. Zafin application sends the request to Z Digital Integration Hub to pull incremental data for the day. Z Digital Integration Hub retrieves the data from the core systems and sends it to Zafin application in the standard format supported by Zafin application. These data include customer information, deposit and card account information, information as to how the accounts and cards are related to the customer, credit card transaction information, and deposit account balance information. Once Zafin application receives the data, batch processing is initiated in the application. This process continues for all the days in the month. As part of the end of month batch processing, Zafin application evaluates the conditions and rewards the customers who are eligible for cash bonus. Let us see how the cash bonus offer is configured in the application. This use case is configured as a bundle offer. As per the use case, customers must hold 2 products, a smart checking account and a premium credit card. Both are defined at the target product holding. There are two conditions that are monitored over the month. Average balance on the smart checking account must at least be $1,000. Spend on premium credit card must at least be $500. Both are defined here. And the reward is a cash bonus of $50 that would be paid to smart checking account at the end of the month. To fulfill this use case, Zafin application pull details from core systems through IBM Z Digital Integration Hub on a daily basis. This information is then ingested by Zafin application through its standard interfaces. Let us see the data being pulled through APIs. Customer information, deposit account information, credit card account information, account to customer relationship information, account balance information, and credit card transaction information. The data received through API is staged in Zafin application and is processed as part of daily batches. The process of retrieving data and processing it continues for the remainder of days in the month. And on completion of the month, on month and batch processing, cash bonus will be paid out to eligible customers. We can see that the data is staged in the application here. We will also show you a payout file generated by the system for the previous month batch processing. What you see on the screen now is the cash bonus reward payout file generated for the month of September. With this, we have completed the third use case. In today's demo session, we have seen rates management, how standard rates and special rates are processed real-time with real-time data. On rewards, we have seen how instant rewards are calculated with real-time data pulled from core systems. Furthermore, we have also seen how the multi-product offers are configured in Zafin application and how daily data is being ingested into the system through APIs for further processing. I will now hand this over to Mythili, who would take you through deployment considerations and further.
Thank you, Vinu. So the artifacts that were developed here as part of this proof of concept can be reused, with client engagements. So from an IT perspective, what you saw was the Z Digital Integration Hub running in an IBM lab in Poughkeepsie, New York, that had core systems of record data also in that lab environment, and Zafin running live in a cloud environment, interacting just through the API. So it's really important to note that the interaction between them is standards-based API driven, and the information that flowed from the systems of record to the Zafin applications, as Vinu pointed out, was really just what was needed, not all of the data, which made this very efficient. For example, it's month-to-date cash withdrawals amounts or numbers versus all the transaction information, or incremental single-day view, which is a subset of data, as opposed to the totality of all the data. So the artifacts are reusable, the interfaces are reusable. The additional customization that would be required, of course, is to integrate a specific client back-end systems of record with the Digital Integration Hub so that the raw data can be accessed. But from the Digital Integration Hub forward through the Zafin layers, as we saw, all of that can be reused and as a collateral asset that we can bring to bear, and it helps with deployment activity at a client. We can do that much more quickly, having already developed all of these APIs. So the Zafin and Z Digital Integration Hub can also be integrated, not just for the 3 use cases here that Vinu showed, but for other use cases as well. And because it is an API approach, the time to create this environment is much more fast than doing custom integration, say with specific systems of record data. Okay. The other thing I'd like to point out is that we did this in the context of an environment that we have within the IBM lab called the IBM Z Digital Integration Hub Ecosystem Garage. And we're very pleased to have worked with Zafin to create this proof of concept, and we hope to be extending to other industry functionalities in the future. Next slide, please. Okay, and I'll say a few words here and before I hand it back to Bala, but as I mentioned with the IBM Z Digital Integration Hub Ecosystem Garage, our hope is that we expand the ecosystem, leveraging functionality that's central to the BIAN framework. And BIAN, as background for those who may not know, is the Banking Industry Architecture Network. And it's an organization that establishes and promotes common architectural frameworks for banking operations and bank interoperability. So leveraging capabilities, for example, in the Zafin platform and its interaction with the Z Digital Integration Hub through APIs and standards-based interfaces enables the whole end-to-end integration of core systems that may be very unique depending on the environment in which they run. In this case, we have mainframe core banking systems that can be written, that are custom coded, as in many examples, or some of them are packaged kinds of core systems applications like the Hogan core banking from DXC. So from an end-to-end perspective, rather than surface all the specifics around the core banking data structures, context, etc., we can surface just the interfaces that Zafin wants to consume in order to focus on the application and the value within the application. Likewise, we can surface other interfaces that other ISVs can leverage as well. So Bala, do you want to say a few words about this slide too?
Sure, and thanks, Mythili, and thanks, Vinu, for the demo as well. If you look carefully at the demo that Vinu showed, he talked about deposit rates and instant rewards, as well as the periodic recurring rewards that was batch-based, and those are actually elements of things that a bank typically does. And one such thing that a bank does that actually uses those three things that we showed are offer management. So when you put out an offer, in fact, just the other day, my daughter got an offer from a bank that she accepted, and it looked very similar to the elements that Vinu just showed you. So if you look at the offer management process, there's some marketing and sales that happens, and then there is an onboarding that happens, and then after the onboarding happens, there's ongoing servicing that will be done. A number of banks use Salesforce, for example, for the marketing sales, and they might use an application like Finergo for onboarding. They may have chosen to have externalized their products and pricing, leveraging Zafin. They may be running their core systems on a Z mainframe, either a commercial off the shelf like Hogan Core that Mythili alluded to, or it can be a custom core or any other core system that they have, or they can be cloud-based core systems like Thought Machine that we show. The data has to now get exchanged, and information flows between all of these systems to make it happen and to make it real. And what we showed you are the incremental things that come into Zafin from a channel, and from Zafin into the Z Digital Integration Hub, and from that hub to the core system and then back. And in that pathway, if you look at in context of this, if we build this with a standards framework like Mythili indicated around BIAN, then it becomes not just completely reusable, but it becomes a standard base upon which you can take advantage of any of these type of offer flows that you would do. So huge value to a bank, and this actually is a piece of work that Zafin is very pleased to be working with our partners from IBM and with BIAN. So Vinu, if you could move to the next page. Let me take a quick stab at it, and I'll turn it over to Mythili. So for us at Zafin, it was tremendous working with IBM and the Z Digital Integration Hub, because together, what we created in this proof of concept was we showed that it actually can align into industry standards, such as what buy-in and others bring. But in this particular instance, we showed the clear alignment with buy-in. We actually enable through the Z Digital Integration Hub anyone to broaden their ecosystem without disrupting core systems. As I showed you in that previous slide, you can bring together all of those sales, marketing, sales, servicing, onboarding, all of those different systems together without really disrupting any of your core, provided you can make the core data available in real time or near real time. And if you can enable that real-time flow to happen between core systems and an application like Zafin or any other application there, then you've created real business value. And again, the idea is not to keep moving data around, but to keep the data where it needs to be in the core system, in its system of record. And this way, you're limiting the exposure of raw data going around. And last but not the least, I love what Mythili said. These are all pre-built APIs. The beauty of this for a company like Zafin is that once the Z Digital Integration Hub is integrated into the backend core system, no matter what system that is, our call into the Z Digital Integration Hub doesn't change. So we make the same calls, and no matter what the backend system is, we get the data served to us by Z Digital Integration Hub. So the asset that we have built in this are completely reusable, and they just make for a dramatically far lower risk and far greater speed of integration to happen. Let me turn it over to Mythili for her remarks as well on the combined value.
Thank you, Bala. And we also really tremendously enjoyed working with Zafin to bring a very valuable industry focused use case to the Z Digital Integration Hub, especially since many of our Z clients, as you well know, are banking clients, right? Most of the tier 2s and all of the tier 1 banks run their core operations on the IBM Z environment. So this is very relevant for our clients, and it's also relevant since most of them are looking at that progressive modernization and being able to non-disruptively uplift their whole environment for integration with software as a service, ISV valued applications like Zafin, being able to leverage hybrid cloud efficiently, effectively, being able to integrate into a structure that is aligned to industry architecture frameworks like buy-in, specifically in banking. That's very, very popular. It's a really significant value for our clients, and it helps with the total focus that there is now on time to value, new application development, agile new capabilities being introduced into the environment. So I think that sums up the combined value pretty well. Great. Thank you. And I don't know, Terry, if there are questions.
Yes, we have a couple of questions. First one is, what's the ease of integration or time to value using APIs to Z Digital Integration Hub versus just leveraging the raw data from ETL sources?
I could take a first pass and then also ask Vinu and Bala to comment, but I know that the data that exists on core systems can be pretty complicated, very application dependent in terms of how that data is structured to form information. And so if you look at a system of record, you're probably not going to find a column that says what's the running total of my month-to-date cash withdrawal amount, right? That's a computed kind of value that needs to be computed possibly across multiple raw data elements. So I think there's a greater abstraction for the application to not need to know and understand all of that context. And I think that the time to develop these applications and these APIs and use them is much faster. Bala, Vinu, would you like to comment?
Yeah, so we also, I think earlier on in the discussion talked about data as of yesterday versus data as of now.
Yep.
And that has a really important bearing here. So imagine in the use case that that Vinu alluded to, where we are, where there might be a case where we are looking at an average balance being something before you post a reward. So if you've met all the criteria for a certain reward and you're going to post that $50 into a savings account or something. Now, if you are doing that on your month-end cycle, then in order for me to receive the average balance at the end of the month, it necessarily means that the month-end close has happened for me to get the balance, which means if I get the balance at the, and this is doing in batch mode, if I receive it after batch has run, that means the month-end cycle has already completed, and which now means that the $50 posting never went into the prior month-end cycle, but goes into the next month-end. And so even though I may do the posting, it is posted after the month-end cycle. And therefore, when banks do that, they necessarily start doing disclosures surrounding it. They say, hey, even though we're going to do the posting, it won't be in the prior month, it will be in the following month. So there are disclosures and other things that they have to do in order to be compliant with that, in that scenario, versus doing it in real time, where we can do it even as the close is yet to happen. And if we can get at the data and provide the core system with the $50 to post as part of this closing, we can do it within this cycle, which means you wouldn't have to do those disclosures and all of those things. So there's real value, real business value to a bank for doing some of these things in and as close to real time, rather than doing it with data as of yesterday.
Okay, great. You actually did a great job of it, answering the second question, and I see that we're at the end of our time for today. So thanks for that presentation, and everyone, thanks for attending this session.